Hi, hello. It is Josh Bowe for Pod Maverick, one of the editors over at MavsMoneyball.com, coming to you after the Mavericks are victorious. They snap a four-game losing streak. They beat the San Antonio Spurs 110-93, pulling away in the second half to where the fourth quarter, practically the entire fourth quarter, was garbage time. As you can tell, it is just me starting off this podcast. If you're watching us live or if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you can tell it's just me. If you're listening on our audio only feed, yes, it is just me. Kirk Henderson has the night off, planned rest night for Kirk, as we're giving him the first night off of the back to back as opposed to the second. He had some social obligations that he made well in advance, and since he works like a maniac, um, of course he should do that. He needs to do that, and he picked a great game to miss. To be honest with you, in terms of talking about it, because this might be the shortest podcast we do all season because there's not much to talk about. If you listen to our podcast the other day, Thursday, that'd be Thursday night, the Utah when the Mavericks lost to the Utah Jazz, we were obviously pretty brutally honest about how bad that loss was. And basically the message coming into this game, there's not a lot of analysis you can do. It's just they needed to win this game and they needed to win it comfortably, to be honest with you. If they won this game by 3, 4, 5 points, that would still be very upsetting because for multiple reasons I'll get into right now. This is a back-to-back for the Spurs. They played last night against the Lakers. They're on the road. Mavericks getting back PJ Washington. So they have almost their full complement of rotation players. They're basically just now missing Dante Exum. No Victor Wembanyama. No Devin Vassell, who are the two best players on the Spurs on a team, at best is probably, somewhere in that 10th, 9th range at best. You're talking about a team like that. Take away Wembanyama, take away Vassell. And honestly, what the Spurs rolled out there tonight was even worse than what the Mavericks went up against the Utah Jazz on Thursday. So for this game, for them to either lose or for this game to be close would have been a massive, massive disappointment. I mean, this needed to be the game the Mavericks won and controlled. Now, of course, that didn't start off according to plan. The Mavericks started the game off 11-4. That was to start the opening minutes. And it looked like, okay, that's it. This game's over. They're going to cruise. And for whatever reason, that did not happen. They ended up trailing 28-23 after the first quarter. Bizarre opening quarter. Again, just weird kind of body language, effort issues. Because the Spurs, there wasn't a moment of this game where the Spurs were playing well offensively. Even though they kept things close in the first half, the Mavericks had a 55-51 first half lead. The Mavericks were shooting over 50% in the first half, and the Spurs were at 36. I mean, if I would have told you those shooting numbers before the game, or if I just told you those shooting numbers and I didn't tell you the score, and I asked you to guess the score, you would not have guessed that the Mavericks were up 4. It was really a blowout in the skies, and in the first half, the Mavericks were just kind of playing with their food, not engaged enough, too many dumb fouls, some dumb turnovers. But thankfully, they cleaned most of that up in the third quarter. The final shooting percentages don't look great for the Mavericks, but that was because the fourth quarter was almost exclusively garbage time. And mission accomplished for the Mavericks. No one played over 30 minutes. Kyrie and Luka Doncic were the high minute people at 28. Derek Lively at 20, Maxi Kleber at 12, Klay Thompson at 18, PJ Washington 19, Daniel Gafford 18, Quentin Grimes 22, Najee Marshall 18. So everyone's rested, and then they took care of business. Really, they did what they needed to do. The Spurs front line is atrocious without Wembanyama. They started Zach Collins, who's okay, and then off there you've got some, to be honest, like some G League level guys coming off the bench. And not coincidentally, Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford probably had their best game in ages. Lively started, had 11 points, only 4 rebounds. His rebounding has been a bit weird. Only 2 defensive rebounds in 20 minutes. I don't know what's going on there. But I did have 11 points, had 2 assists, had 4 blocks, was great protecting the rim. Only 1 foul. which was a big improvement over his 5 fouls in like 10 minutes against Utah. And the one foul he committed, funny, was a pretty weak one. But otherwise, he did much better. Didn't commit silly fouls. Played more within himself. Looked more like himself. Kind of have to remind yourself that he is 20, and he probably is going to have games where he just kind of loses himself, which that happened against Utah. Looked significantly better tonight. Gafford coming off the bench looked way better, although defensively he looked very bad in the first quarter. I think that was part of why the Spurs got back into it. Didn't look great guarding the rim first quarter. Picked up tremendously. And honestly, you don't want to take too much away from this game because the roster that the Spurs rolled out there was horrible. I mean, you don't want to make grand proclamations because you need to kind of see this team playing against more real, higher caliber NBA competition before we start talking trends. This is just one night. They play Oklahoma City tomorrow, and even though Oklahoma City doesn't have Chet Holmgren, they won't have Isaiah Hartenstein. It'll at least be a slightly better test to see if this team is pulling itself kind of out of the muck that it's been in for the last week or so. But having said all that, not trying to, overreact to one performance against a really bad team, Gafford off the bench just makes sense to me with his production. Gafford is a good rim protector, but he can't really guard in space. And if he isn't guarding a shot directly at the rim, he can get kind of lost sometimes. And when he's coming off the bench, I just feel like it's that weakness is not as exposed. And I feel like his offense, to be honest, matters so much more coming off the bench, especially since the Mavericks don't really have a true blue backup point guard. Like, you look at the Mavericks and they're scoring off the bench, they don't really have like your traditional 6-man scorer. Najee Marshall is maybe the closest you get there, but he hasn't been shooting the ball well. Well, I thought Najee had a pretty overall solid game, despite the fact that he shot 2 of 9. I don't think you want him being a guy to be your microwave bench scorer. I don't know if you want Dwight Powell to be that either, but they need some guys that can put the ball in the hoop coming off the bench. And I think Gafford can do that. If there's one thing you cannot take away from Daniel Gafford is that boy can put the ball through the hoop. He had a couple of post-ups. Like, it wasn't just catching assists and lobs. He grabbed the ball on the block and scored a couple times. Had a nice hook shot. Had a great dunk. And he looked great. Really, the whole team defensively played better. Don't think it's a coincidence. PJ Washington, although he didn't score, any points, he was 0 of 2 from the floor. Came off the bench, which I have to imagine that's just kind of ramping him up. Massive difference defensively. Had 2 steals, a lot of deflections. He had more defensive rebounds in his 19 minutes than Derek Lively did in 21 minutes. He had 4 defensive rebounds. Thought he did a good job cleaning up the loose ball after the center contested, which I think has been a problem for the Mavericks with PJ out, is they don't have as much size and athleticism on the back line when their center contests. I think that's why they've been giving up a lot of points in the paint. No issue with that tonight. The Spurs had 32 points in the paint. They shot 10 of 20 in the restricted area. And yes, holding a team to 50% in the restricted area is very good. The number to look at there is 20 attempts. The Mavericks did a much better job cutting off dribble penetration. Again, not hard to do when the guards that the Spurs rolled out were Chris Paul, Stephon Castle, who's a very good rookie who I like, but still a rookie. And then you look at their backup guards, Trey Jones, who I actually like, but hasn't played since opening night due to an ankle injury. And really, the Spurs just didn't have any juice off the dribble, which certainly made it easier for the Mavericks. But they still, they have to do it, and they did it. They handled dribble penetration very well. Spurs got nothing in the paint. Spurs really got nothing all game. I mean, they were in the 30s for pretty much start to finish. They finished the first half shooting 36%, and then they finished the game shooting 31.8%. The lowest mark a Mavericks opponent has shot against them this season. The Mavericks took care of business. They absolutely did. The slow start, not great again. Luka Doncic, I think, had a weird game where he was still a positive on the floor. He was a plus 15 in his 28 minutes. Shot poorly, 2 of 16, 3 of 9 from 3. Only had 8 assists, 4 turnovers. Just still looks a little off, and I don't know if it's injury or something else. But this was a game the Mavericks didn't really need him, so that's great. Save him, conserve him, and hopefully Luka looks more like himself against Oklahoma City Thunder. Klay Thompson didn't have to do much in his 19 minutes. He was 4-7 from the floor. Made a lot of twos, which was interesting. They had a couple of plays where he was running off some screens. Instead of catching and shooting, he kind of curled all the way to the rib and got some layups, which was also very helpful. Kyrie Irving shooting the ball extremely well, 9 of 15 from the floor. Tied Gafford for the lead with 22 points. And everyone else kind of chipped in. Like I said, Lively had a pretty decent game. Defensively, he was everywhere. I thought this was one of his better defensive games. Again, opponent makes that a lot easier. I thought Jaden Hardy finally hit some shots, which was good to see for him. I thought Jaden Hardy passed the ball really well. He had 1 assist, no turnovers. And you're going to be like, what? He had maybe 4 potential assists that were taken away from him because the Spurs fouled whoever caught the ball. He had a really awesome. Luka did a lead pass up to Hardy, one of those full court 2-handed lead passes, getting the ball off the floor from a Luka rebound. And Hardy jumped up midair and just touch passed it right to Lively for an alley-oop, and Lively got fouled. He had another one of those plays in the second half as well. And I thought his floor vision was actually really good, and he should have had like 5, 6, maybe even 7 assists, but the Spurs were fouling a lot. Got a note, where's Kirk? As I said at the top of the show, Kirk is getting the night off. He had social plans that he made well in advance, and he needed the night off. We're going to talk tomorrow. So let Kirk rest. The guy, he talks a lot. He needs his night off too. Need to let him have some fun. But yeah, no issues with Kirk. He's just, this was a planned night off for him, so we're all good. And yeah, like I said, don't know if he would have much more to say than what I'm saying, other than mission accomplished. Like I said, the Mavericks had to win this game, and they had to win it comfortably, and they did. They did both of those things. Getting guys rest before they play Oklahoma City on the road tomorrow night, very important. And I'm very interested to see what this team looks like tomorrow. Hopefully, no one on the Mavericks rests. Hopefully, we see the full complement of the team. We see PJ Washington. We see Luka. We see Kyrie Irving. Because the games against the good teams are the games that I love watching. Because those are the games, those feel more like the measuring stick games to me. Trying to read a little bit of the comments because I'm not doing a live show, and to be honest, there's not much to talk about. So trying to maybe look at some comments to kind of spur off a little bit. Fan123, PJ getting too much credit for a guy who's a black hole in offense. He has been very bad at offense, and to be honest, he is stretching, the limit of how bad you can be as an offense on offense. How much does that cancel out by your great defense? And to be honest, it is shocking because his defense has been so good. I honestly feel like it is canceling out his bad offense. He doesn't now long term. He can't be shooting, 40%. Can't be shooting 22% from 3. He can't go scoreless in 19 minutes. But his defense is crucial, absolutely crucial. You look at the Mavericks roster and you look at Maxi Kleber, who's really the only other similarly defensively skilled player like PJ as a forward, like a shot blocking weak side power forward. That's kind of what PJ has settled into defensively. Kleber is not a guy that's going to play a lot of minutes and can get hurt. PJ is really the only guy that can do that. Like Najee Marshall can fill at the 4, but he is not weak side, guard the rim when the center comes up, can guard the back line. And then also, use his athleticism out in the perimeter, get deflections, get steals. Like he's really the only guy they have on the roster that can do that besides Maxi. And again, Maxi's not someone that you're going to be able to play night in and night out because of his age and his injury history. So yes, PJ's offense, not ideal. Cannot go scoreless in 19 minutes. Last game he played before this one, he had 8 points in 35 minutes. He was 3 of 11. Hasn't shot the ball well at all from 3. Has had some good 2-point shooting games. Like that game against Minnesota, he was 7 of 13 from the floor. He was 6 of 11 in a win against Utah before that. So they need some more from him offensively, but his defense has been so crucial that they can't really afford to get away from it. Another question here from No Name. Josh, what do you think about the Mavs lack of 3-point volume? I don't think it's going to work against better teams. Yeah, the 3-point shooting is, I don't know how to say this. It's a concern because you look at what the Mavericks did this offseason, where they weren't a good 3-point shooting team last season, and they were able to get away from that because of their incredible athleticism and their incredible defense. Their defense can still be pretty good. Maybe not as good as last season because I think some of those officiating changes is not allowing the team to be as physical as they want, as they were in the second half of last season. But it could still be very good. The thing is this offseason, they were like, okay, we can shave a little bit off of our defense because we still think if we shave a little bit off, it's going to be very good, while increasing our offensive capability. More shooting, more playmaking with Klay Thompson, Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall. Two bona fide shooters, Klay Thompson, Quentin Grimes. More playmaking with Najee Marshall. We're seeing the playmaking with Najee Marshall. He had 4 assists in 18 minutes, got to the cup, made his passes. That's happening. The shooting is not there yet. Quentin Grimes hasn't really gotten on track from 3. He was 0 of 2 tonight. Had a good game the other night, but hasn't been consistent. Clay's 3-pointer also hasn't been consistent. He's now below 36% from 3 in the month of November. He had 2 good 3-point shooting games in the loss against Utah and the loss against Golden State, but kind of had some bad ones before that. So Klay hasn't been consistent enough from 3. And then the big thing is, besides Klay and Quentin getting more on track from 3, is Luka is not shooting the ball well from 3 at all. And that's a big deal. He was close to 39% last season. He was 38.2. Now he's at 32. And when he's far and away your leader in 3-point attempts, if you're leader of the team in 3-point attempts, shooting 32% from 3, that makes it hard to be a good 3-point shooting team. I don't care how good Klay is or how good Grimes is or how good the rest of the roster is. Luka has to be better from 3, and I think that'll fix some of it that No Name was wondering. So they might not be an incredible 3-point shooting team, but they definitely need to get up to like 35, 36, maybe 37% as a team. And I think a lot of that comes from Luka, who clearly just doesn't, look right now. So I don't know if he's hurt. He doesn't look like he's moving very well. So if he can get healthy somehow, that's the thing with Luka that's tough is like, when does he get healthy? Because he seemingly gets nicked up every game because of the physical play. He's a physical basketball player. He gets into the paint and he takes a lot of contact. That's a great thing. You like having your stars be not afraid of contact, be physical players. He's a strong player. He likes using the physicality to his advantage. But it seems like he's starting to just be hurt all the time. And not even like hurt, but just like gimpy and lipping around. And that's not his fault necessarily. It's just tough if he's like that. It's going to be hard for him to get into a rhythm from 3 because if you don't have your legs, you can't shoot NBA threes. It's just kind of how it is. So hopefully he can get right, get his legs right, get right from 3. And if he starts making his threes, the rest will follow. Like someone in the comments said, all of the volume from the threes come from Kyrie, Luka, and Klay. Kyrie and Klay are doing their part percentage wise, but Luka's not. So when Luka does, I think you'll see that team number go up, obviously. But yeah, that's the thing. They need to be better from 3 because if they're going to take a step back athletically, they're going to take a little bit step back on defensively. They can't be as bad as a 3-point shooting team as they were last season. So that'll be something to watch for sure. But offensively, I honestly think the team is fine. I know that there was a lot of consternation around the offense during this 4-game losing streak, but the Mavericks shot above 50% from the floor in all 4 of those losses. They've been a good paint points team all season. Like all season, they've been a good paint points team. They've been right above 50 in a majority of their games. They're at 56 points in the paint tonight. I had the game chart. Yeah, they were 22 of 36 in the restricted area tonight. Percentage, not great, but they had 36 attempts, which is great. So really the story of these 4 losses was just the very bad defense and some turnover issue. So they cleaned up the turnovers tonight a little bit. They had 14, still more than their average. Luka and Kyrie combined for 7 of the 14. There's still some of those turnovers. Like there's something with the turnovers, and I think it's a little bit of teams are taking away the lobs and they're taking away corner threes. And the Mavericks shot only 6 corner threes. They only made 1 corner three tonight. When you take away the corner threes, you take away the lobs, and you don't double Luka, you don't double Kyrie, which is ad nauseum. We've said this after every game, but this is how teams are guarding them. They're guarding them more straight up in the pick and roll, more drop, more one-on-one coverage. So it is leading to the Mavericks getting the rim a little bit more, getting into the paint more, but their three-point shooting hasn't been great, and there's just not a lot of lobs for the centers, which is why it was nice to see Daniel Gafford. 22 points, Lively 7 points. Like those two combining for 29 points is pretty good when you consider that teams are just not giving them easy lobs. So they're figuring it out. They probably need to figure some more stuff out. Like I said, I would love some more dribble handoff. The Mavericks have been incredible at dribble handoff plays. Kyrie and Luka both very high points per possession on dribble handoff plays. That might be able to be a counter. We'll see. So I don't have much to say. 20 minutes, 22 minutes. I don't know what else, I don't know what else more we could say because this is a very bad team. We'll see more tomorrow. Kirk will be back tomorrow. Oklahoma City, even without their centers, even without Chet, even without Isaiah Hartenstein, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace. They got guys. Like it'll still be a fun game. It'll be a nice styles fight too, because they're going small. They're playing 5-out basketball right now. They're not really playing a center. I think they're technically playing Jalen Williams at the 5, like small wing Jalen Williams. So I'm going to be very interested to see how Lively and Gafford hold up. Hopefully this is a game where those two can exert their dominance, and this isn't something where they struggle in space and Kid has to match small ball with small ball. Like ideally, I think if the Mavericks win, hopefully we see them not needing to resort to small ball and utilizing their size advantage in the paint and taking advantage of that and getting Oklahoma City behind the 8 ball, maybe with some foul trouble or some rebounding issues. So that's going to do it for me. 23 minutes feels like enough. Again, not more to be said than the Mavericks taking care of business. They didn't take care of business against Utah, and that's why that game was so bad, and that's why we got so angry about it. But obviously the season did not end with that Utah loss. But let's see what they do tomorrow night. So credit to the Mavericks. They have some pride. They did what they're supposed to do. Not going to give them a pat on the ass for that, though. Like, do your job. You did your job. So congratulations. Not a bad thing, but I'm not going to, effusively praise and say that things are fixed. They've still got some work to do, and tomorrow is another opportunity to show off that they are putting that 4-game losing streak behind them. So this is Josh Bowe from Pod Maverick. Check MavsMoneyball.com. We've got post-game stuff going up on the site. We appreciate you guys either listening on our audio-only feed. We appreciate you guys watching live on YouTube or watching after the fact on YouTube. We really do appreciate it. So that's very great. Great for y'all. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would really help us. Subscribe to the audio-only podcast feed, whether that's Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever you listen for your audio podcasts. We appreciate it. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Kirk should be back, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Appreciate you guys joining me. 480 people watching on a sleepy Saturday night. So that's great. And we'll talk to you guys later. Again, for Pod Maverick, this is Josh Bowe. You guys stay safe tonight. Have a good rest of your Saturday night. We'll talk to you Sunday after the OKC game.